One. Hey, everybody, this is Tara Shaver with AARP's Office of Volunteer Engagement, welcoming you to the Roost News Podcast, the place for all things volunteer. And I am here today with the members of the Roost News Podcast. And in honor of National Volunteer Month, and in order to celebrate our work here on the Roost News, I just wanted to sit down with them and hear their volunteer stories and talk a little bit about where they have been on this journey of podcasting with the Roost News Podcast. So, without further ado, we will go ahead and get started. Nancy, you are in the first corner of my screen, so I'm going to go to you and ask you if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit about how you came to volunteering with AARP.
Well, I'm Nancy McCammon Hanson. I live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I met a friend when we were getting the League of Women Voters up and running again in Fort Wayne. And together, she and I have gotten each other in a lot of trouble being volunteers who get out and do things, but that's okay. And she invited me to become an AARP volunteer, a local one. So I said yes, and I was interviewed by the woman who is now our state president, and it was right before I had a job interview in the same coffee shop. So it's been fun. It's been interesting, very interesting.
That's awesome. About how many years have you been volunteering, Nancy, with AARP?
I think about 5, but quite honestly, I don't remember. So it could be more. Could be more.
Time flies when you're having fun, and getting brought along by a friend, it seems to be the number one way that folks come to volunteering with us. Okay, Doretha, you're in the hot seat. How about you? How'd you come to volunteer with AARP? Oh no, technical difficulties. Let's try it. Let's try to help you out.
There you are. Back. Okay. And I am so sorry because it's just like all of a sudden nothing. Okay, I'm Doretha McCoy, and I came to volunteer during the COVID. I had read something and I joined the Los Angeles Advocate here in LA. And I have been a volunteer since 2019, 2020, and it has been joyful. I've had a wonderful time. So that's how long I've been, and I've been a volunteer with AARP.
Can you believe that's been about 5 years now? That's amazing. And that is Los Angeles friends, not Lower Alabama. So she's out in Los Angeles, California.
Yes, Los Angeles, California.
Great. All right, Curtis, how about you? You're up next.
So I'm Kurt Springstead. I'm located in North Jersey. And in early 2020, something came across my stream. I don't know where it actually came from, in a lull in my other volunteer work, and asking for people to join the Speakers Bureau in the state. And I had given presentations as part of my profession. So I signed up and got the official notice that I was part of the Speakers Bureau the day before they locked the country down for the pandemic. So I thought, well, that should hold that for a little while. But because of my technical background, I was actively engaged as we brought it to be a virtual program. And now I'm the co-chair of the program here in the state of New Jersey. So my tenure started with that, and that's my 5-year history just came up a few months ago.
Congratulations. That's amazing. I'm smiling so big because it makes me so happy to know that out of so many of the things that we could complain about out of the pandemic times, we got some really amazing volunteers who joined us just in the perfect timing and are still with us today. So we are so grateful for that. And you probably know my colleague, Christina, from New Jersey.
Yeah. Yes, she was still an active part of our operation. And like I said, my colleague Rich and I took it over from when the original founder decided to finally, after 20 years of volunteering, to move on. From the state.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. All right, Constance, you're up.
Thanks, Tara. Wow. So I got convicted about volunteering actually when I was in college. I didn't start volunteering with AARP then, but my conviction came about because I read somewhere that if you tithe your money, you should also consider tithing your time. So I began volunteering during my college years. And then as I grew older and got into retirement years, it was a natural that I would look to volunteer with AARP. I began here in Maryland with the Speakers Bureau. And then, Tara, I don't remember where I saw it, but I saw something about the podcast, the Roost podcast, and you might recall that I then emailed you to ask what I needed to do to apply and join. I don't remember our messages back and forth, but here I am. And I think I've been overall a volunteer with AARP for, ooh, maybe a little under 10 years, over 5, but less than 10 is my best guesstimate.
I think we can probably thank our friends in Maryland for making sure it was a luck connection. They probably nudged you a little our way and made sure that I saw your message as well. They're good people over there. Thank you so much. Louise, we're glad you came back around. We were worried about you. We thought
I'm
the
in the
Gremlins
internet.
ate you. You are
So-
totally fine. You guys maybe here's my dog's bark. Maybe my computer is helping that not happen. But either way, I'm going to toss the baton to Whit to make his introduction while Louise gets herself back at ease in front of the camera. And then Louise, you'll bring us home before we move on to the next question. Whit, you're up.
Hello, my name is Whit Phillips. I am in the Atlanta metro area, and I started my volunteerism back in 2011. And I started volunteering with different organizations, and I met some real interesting and nice volunteers. And we ended up volunteering with the same organizations. And a couple of them were volunteering with AARP at the time. And I said I would love to be a part of that group. And right before the pandemic, I submitted my application to be a volunteer within my area and finally got accepted. So after I got accepted, I guess about 2 years later, I can't remember how I became aware of the Roost News, but I was accepted into the Roost News, and I love sharing information. I love hearing about things going on within the community and outside the community.
Thanks, Whit. All right. Louise, bring us home with this question.
Okay, so actually I was working, I was a volunteer with Lifelong Learning at the time, and I met Terry Elder. I'm in the Sarasota, Florida area, and she was just a delight to work with, was doing some supportive work with us at the Lifelong Learning Academy. And she actually invited me to participate in ARP, and then more recently said, I think you'd be good on podcast, and would you consider signing up? And so that's how I kind of got the connection. And I've done podcasts, and I've done TV and interviews, and I do a lot of teaching. So it's pretty comfortable for me. And I was a psychotherapist, so I've interviewed my entire career. So
Everybody look out. Louise is going to have us all summed up here.
David loves to say that about me and to intimidate everybody, but no, I'm not that intimidating, I don't think.
Thank you so much. We have a great relationship going with some of our lifelong learning organizations across the country, and some volunteers who I know are very active in that work from coast to coast. So that's really cool to hear. That's how you got roped into coming on over to AARP. So, well, friends, I know several of you were able to share your story about how you came to join the Roost News, but if anyone else would like to share kind of how you moved into this, or maybe what sparked your attention, Doretha, I saw your hand come up. Go right ahead, and then we'll go to Nancy.
Yes, I saw an ad, and I used to be an executive producer for both National Public Radio and public television. So they were looking for someone, and I said, this would be perfect for my time, since I was a little, as they say, bored at home. So this kind of helped me get on it. I sent a note over to Lillian, and I was accepted. So yeah.
I love it. That's so great. And this is you're exactly the kind of person that we were hoping we would drum up as part of our work. And we said, there got to be folks out there, right? People, there's got to be people who've formerly done this, even if maybe they didn't do it in the podcast space. Nancy.
The state of Indiana was looking for people to talk about accessory dwelling units. And we have a friend who actually was in part responsible for our family moving here. And so her mother had built an accessory dwelling unit in Amy's backyard because she needed to be closer to family to be taken care of. And so I called Amy up and said, would you want to be interviewed? And she said, sure. And thankfully, she's got a great gift of gab. And so we did an interview that the state used. And then Dan Domsick, who was working for Indiana's now in Colorado, called me up and he said, you really ought to volunteer to be on the Roost. And I said, what's the Roost? I'd never heard of it. So he put me in touch with Lily and Lee, and the rest is history.
That is really cool, and it's so fun. Not only do our staff members sometimes go to different offices, but it's real common that our volunteers get the chance to go and volunteer with other state offices as they move from place to place. So yeah, Curtis, Duffy, your hand come back up.
Yeah, so I'm like everybody. I got a notice in one of the many AARPs that they had this. I'm a big fan of podcasts. I listen to way too many of them. And I thought, well, I'm going to become famous too then, and I'll sign up for the Roost podcast. And like Louise, I have a lot of background in training and education. And the interview wasn't the one of the skills I developed to communicate and make people aware of things. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. So that was the other part that got to me.
Thank you. We share that love, and you have a great voice. That's like I'm making notes here for who I need for voiceovers later for some other projects that we're working on. Don't worry, Constance, you're already on the list. I haven't forgotten you. Our friends over at the Ethel are working on some projects that I think we may have to just nudge them a little and say, hey, we got a whole crew over here ready to help out. All right, anybody else want to share on that note? I think we covered everybody. All right, cool. Well, so this one is a biggie, and I'm so interested to hear what you guys have really gotten out of this, because I know every time I listen or every time someone shares a tidbit with me about one of the episodes that they've listened to, I'm just so proud of the work that you all have done and how it becomes a place for us to be able to refer staff and volunteers back to episodes that maybe are timely for them now, stuff that is, really relevant to their work. You mentioned accessory dwelling units. It's something that's been on my mind a lot as we look at how quickly things are evolving and developing here where I live. And I've got just enough space in the backyard to be able to pop up a pretty nice little spot back there. So that's percolating for me. But in addition to giving people ideas and giving them some of the in-depth, Q&A that they might need before they decide they're going to maybe tackle a project or revisit something that they've been doing for a long time that just needs a refresh. So everything that we're doing here is not only has a value in the moment, but it's got a good shelf life on it as well. So the next question I have for you guys is to describe your experience as a team member. And we've got a couple of things that you might follow up on. So I'm going to just throw those out there and then we'll just continue the conversation. So, one of those things might be, was there something that you learned something new that's really stuck with you? The other part of that is, did you decide to interview a staff or volunteer because it was a topic that was really personal to you? And is that kind of what got you started as you started to do the interviewing? And maybe it was that you just jumped right in there and grabbed whatever was assigned to you, however that might go. I'm really curious to hear from you guys. What is it that's really stood out as you have started volunteering with the Roost and as you've been conducting all these interviews? Teresa, go for it.
Hi. What has stuck with me is all of the different things that are available through AARP that I didn't know about. So for an example, the one that really got me excited was Gift of a Lifetime. All the things that they do, how they go about it. There's so many things on on AR. What are we doing with our AI? I always say augmented reality, but AI, which is really quite interesting on the rules and how AARP is using it. It kind of educates people. And then there are all the different things that we didn't know about, how to use Zoom, all the things that a lot of seniors don't know. I mean, I've used it, but it was just kind of really interested to learn all these different things and understand what AARP offered. And that really got me excited.
Hey, I've been here. This is my 20th year at AARP, and I learned something new almost every day.
Right.
It's just amazing how many things that we're involved in, and especially as we brought on those affiliates. I'm with you, Doretha. It makes me like really excited when we know that we can also help promote some of those programs that really kind of touch the heartstrings a bit more. They're just really, it just makes me really proud to be part of the organization. So, Kurt, did I see you looking interested?
Yeah, a lot of this is going to be repetitive because we all know that once you're inside AARP, you discover just how enormous it is as an organization and where it goes. So I'm just an incredibly curious person by nature. My work as a consultant required me to learn lots of businesses. So I'm in the same sort of mode here. And I think that's what attracted me, frankly, to being in the podcast is my natural curiosity allows me to take that and bring out what's going on. But I want to not only talk about the programs, those of us who volunteer, we don't always get a lot of recognition. So I want to put a little sunlight on those people who are doing work, particularly those who are doing something innovative. And it's just always nice to meet people across the country. I'm relatively new at this. I've only done a couple. So most of mine have been focused on new things that I don't really know about. Maybe there's a kernel of it, but this next one I'm going to do, I'm come from the program, so I'll have a different insight. But because I like to keep the drive Lillian crazy by keeping my conversation a little fluid and go with the way the session goes, but still stay within the constraints of what we're trying to accomplish here.
That's great. I'm also a curious person. I just always have a million questions when you start talking about something new. And I love that. And I think that's one of the reasons that this excites me so much, that we've been not only able to keep this going, but keep it growing. So Anyone else? Nancy. And then Louise, will go to you.
I cannot remember who I interviewed, but one of my earlier interviews was with a couple of people, and somehow I took a question and took a turn. Okay. And having been a reporter in a past life, I always liked to do feature work as opposed to hard news, because feature work to me was more interesting. It was more people. And AARP is about people, but you don't necessarily feel that when you're reading an e-newsletter or you're online looking at a web page. And I think that's one of the best things about the Roost News, is that you see people in the real world who are doing real stuff and making a difference, and showing how you can be a part of it, or giving you ideas of something you can do. And it humanizes the other information that's out there.
Yes, it sure does. And isn't it amazing how many people that have done just really amazing and powerful things, and you guys are included? I'm sure there's probably secrets you have that you haven't shared with the team, and people are so humble, and not in like a gross kind of way, but like then just like occasionally they'll throw you a little bone and you'll be like, what now? What did you just say? And you'll learn some really cool things about folks as you're working together, and especially as you get to interview them and put them in the hot seat. Yeah, Louise, go ahead.
So I have to say that I work with a lot of local community organizations. And one of the things I love about ARP, and I especially love these podcasts, I've only really done one. I did one with Constance, which I'll comment on because I thought it was great. But I did one, and I was so impressed with, like Curtis says, the innovation. Number one, it was somebody comes up with an idea, ARP supports it, and it's great for the community. So that was one piece, and just people coming together. But I also like this team, all the work that that goes into what I know Lillian and Judy work really hard, and I really appreciate all they do in trying to pull us together. And it's just a sense of camaraderie just being in the meeting. So I love that. And then the other thing is Constance and I both did the Disrupt Aging, and I'm sad that that program is not as active. I think it is fabulous. I think we should do it across all age groups. I mean, Bob Bush said, you know, you can do it anywhere and on your own, but you know, it was nice when they got set up and you could just do them. And I think it's great information. But I think for me, the thing that resonates is what we're doing in our communities. And so as we go out and do these interviews and learn about AARP and other, you know, states and what they're doing locally, it's both exciting, but that sense of community, which is what AARP is all about, just resonates very strongly. And I also like the cross-pollination and the networking with other organizations. As I told you, I was at Lifelong Learning, and that's how I met Terry Elder. And so that's how I came to AARP. And so, and Constance and I did a great interview with Lillian, I think, right, Constance, about our experience with Disrupt Aging in that program, which I love that program.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of requests, and this kind of comes and goes over time, but about intergenerational, you know, not just working, but like sometimes it's these generational differences of just how people sometimes communicate or what their, you know, different terminology and things. And sometimes people make those judgments that we know that was such a cool way for people to bring up the conversation. So I'll have to give credit to my good friend Bob to say, you know, we will continue some of that work in a different way. It may not have the official stamp and brand, but that doesn't stop when we have gained that great knowledge, just like some things we've done in the past. Some of you may remember a program we called Life Reimagined, where we're really helping people think about what they were going to do in their what's next, whether that was re-careering or whether that was just as they thought about maybe transitioning to volunteer work as they left the workforce. And so we never really give those things up, especially when we see the light bulbs go off when we're doing that work in community. So thanks for bringing community into this conversation too, because that's also one of my favorite parts and where I started. Constance, did you have something to add?
I would just add back to community. The most recent podcast that I did was interviewing a couple of people from the West Coast, Oregon, in particular, Eugene County and also Medford. And those two communities have intentionally planned, along with AARP's help, a community for those of us as we continue to age, to make them really, really user-friendly is an understatement. I mean, these communities have gone out of their way to really pay attention to detail, to make sure the quality of life and living for those of us who are in our 60s and 70s can proceed as seamlessly as possible. And I got so excited during the interview that afterwards Lillian had to remind me, it's not about you, Constance. It's not about you, as Rick Warren says, it's not about you, but to really make it more about showing other volunteers across the country what can be done in their communities. But I tell you, I was ready to I'm still ready to pack my bags and move to Oregon. So I like learning what other volunteer groups are doing and how they are using the resources of AARP. And those two cities are great examples.
Yeah, thank you. That's wonderful. We always say, if you've seen one state, you've seen one state, you know, even though we're all doing very similar work, things really shake down differently, and they really shake down differently when you get to the community level. And I'm with you, Constance. I've had my eyes on Idaho, basically because I can get a milder summer, but I've also Oregon, they've got a little piece of my, you know, of my checklist as well. So we may have to go do a scouting mission together. Okay, Whit, did you want to add anything?
Yes, of course. With the podcast and the team, I've learned that there are so many caring people willing to share information, resources, experiences, and all those things put together help us grow and reach people that need that information.
Thank you. That's one of the things I was so impressed with as I came to AARP many moons ago, that I said, how is every single person I meet so dang great? They were just, every person had just this energy about them, and the great care and concern for, their fellow man. And that was just a real vibe I could get with. So I'm sure that speaks to why I've been here for so long, and still some days it feels like just yesterday. And for those of you who, approaching that 5-year mark, before you know it, you'll be the one at the 20-year mark saying, oh, I can't believe it's been that long. I've lost count. So I have a really interesting question to ask you guys, because I think, Kurt, you brought this up a little bit and we kind of started out talking about it. And it's this idea around volunteer appreciation or volunteer recognition. This is always a challenge for our colleagues across the country, is to think of kind of fresh ways to recognize people, or maybe just to think about the ways that are most meaningful. And I would love to know from y'all, what are some of your preferred / favorite ways to be recognized? Maybe a memorable, something, acknowledgement that you've been given. It doesn't have to be an item, but I'm just curious about that. And I think this could be an entire episode sometime where we just talk about these good eggs. But I would love to know, what are some of those most meaningful, recognitions or appreciations that you've received over the years? And it doesn't have to be with us.
Well, I'll start off with this. So I've been volunteering, like many of you, since I was in college. So I've had a lot of different experiences with different types of volunteers. Some of it was more based around the community, but for a large part it was around my career and my interests, my hobbies. I was racing cars, so I needed to run races so I could have places to race. So, but what's interesting is AARP has really been different. Is I have never received quite as much recognition and acknowledgement in anything else I've ever done. And it comes in many forms. Sometimes it's a little gift card, the gatherings. I've been lucky enough to get recognized for some reason. I think I was the only person, that's why they gave me the award. But anyway, I've won swag and trinkets and so on. But most of us volunteer because the reward is all intrinsic. Now, we get it from within ourselves. We do this because we want to do it. But it's work, and it takes effort, and it takes energy. And so once in a while, it's good to just, sometimes I like to just sit in the room when we have these regional meetings in our state of all the other volunteers, and see all these people that I don't run into, even as much as I'm involved, who doing all these other great things that are helping our community, the 50 plus, live their full life, as I like to say, as it says on the billboards. And I think that's, to me, that's the thing is, for me, I'm going to say that my greatest reward is that I get to see how many other people are doing the same thing that I am and getting the same level of enjoyment. So if I'm having a down day because it's frustrating and we're having a struggle with a program, or it's not taking traction, or maybe I don't have the budget I want to have, I'm like, well, we're all trying. We're moving the world forward. And that's really the greatest reward that I get.
I love that. And I think you just described that also in a way that we try to say when we get together with other volunteers and staff, that it gives you this boost, like there's something to it, and getting to, I think you described it so well, that it's not just about the quote socializing, or like, it was a fun time and we had a great meal, but it's like you get to hear all of this and you realize that the collective is doing a whole lot. And even if they're not getting quite where they were shooting for, it's still way more than we would have been able to do on our own, or by doing nothing at all. So yeah, that's really well said.
Yeah, when I go to these luncheons and such, I purposely sit at a table where I don't know anyone, because I want to hear all those stories. I don't need to sit with the people I already know. I want to sit with the people I haven't met yet and find out what's going on. My fear is, though, I keep signing up for other things, so maybe I shouldn't keep doing that. I don't know. Well.
All right, Kurt, I know what our adventure is going to be. We're going to do a world tour of some sort where we just get people's stories all across the globe, because I have that same approach. That sounds like a fun time. All right, Doretha, you were looking really engaged. Did you have something you wanted to add to this?
Well, actually, I agree with Kurt. Everything, it's the excitement. It's unfortunately, we don't get together here in Los Angeles as often as I would like, but whenever we do, it is phenomenal. You can feed off the energy. And as far as the thank yous are concerned, Occasionally, I mean, I've gotten a pen, I've gotten just a little swag that they give, just to thank you, but to see the expression on people's faces and the work and the reward of what you've done, it's just great. I just enjoy it because it's just infectious.
I love that. Anybody else have a favorite? Louise? Yeah.
Well, I think mine goes along with Doretha's and Kurt's, is in that I love again, getting together with other volunteers with AARP is always phenomenal, and hearing from them and what they're doing and the energy and the excitement in the air. Everybody is happy to be there. The other thing that I will tell you that I notice, and I've been a volunteer coordinator with lifelong learning myself, is that you don't know who's paid and who's not paid. That's what I think. It's like we're all in the same playing field. There's no status issue in terms of who we all are and we're just as important. And as much as they say volunteers are important, and I agree, and I volunteer in many organizations that have a lot of volunteers, I think it's particularly relevant that you feel like a peer and not a volunteer. At least I do as a professional. And I think that's, to me, is very validating. I really don't need public accolades. I got one last night, and they're not why I do what I do. I do what I do because, as you say, helping people with their quality of life, and you get something out of that. And working with great people, whether they're the people you're helping or, like in our group here, the people you're working with. And it's just nice to have that kind of energy and community and meetups with people. So I concur with everything that Kurt and Doretha said, because I agree.
I love that. That is one of my favorite things. Even after all these years, there'll be volunteers who've volunteered for as many years as I can remember, and someone will say, I just figured out that so-and-so was a volunteer. And I say, oh, really? Because we do make an effort, to try to make those distinctions. But I think you're right. It's showing up like that in a way that you are a peer and a colleague with each other. It makes it, I personally think I find that more rewarding, as well as being a staff member who works with volunteers. And you guys keep me coming back to work, that's for sure. So anybody else want to add something? Yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
As you all were talking, I was thinking about different things that I've been thanked for. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago is that as individuals, we should be thanking people that we come across in public, and friends and that kind of thing, for things that they have done. And one thing that really surprises a lot of people is when you say, you're really good at your job. And I told that to a checkout clerk at a grocery store one day, and I thought she was going to faint. She was so surprised. But it just a little recognition that you're good. You're a good person. And I wish the world would do more of that, because we could all use a pat on the back once in a while.
Nancy, isn't that the truth? And that direct, like, to the person kind of thank you is often what I'll hear from people. They'll say, I really just like to be like, you don't even have to say it in front of anybody, but if you let me know, thank you for something specific, right? That's not generic. Like, even if it's that you always come with a smile on your face, or, whatever the issue is that really stands out to you. I think those compliments also all come with great reward. I have listened to an audiobook called Magic Money, Making Magic Money, or something like that. And it's all about like this idea that, what you put out comes back around to you. And one of their things is thank yous. And I was like, that is so interesting. So I started to experiment with it a bit. And I'll be darned if almost every time you put out a thank you, almost as instantly as it goes out, something really good comes back. It comes back your way. And it's kind of a fun little game I like to play now. So Nancy, I love that example too, of just telling someone, you're really good at your job. Thanks. You're like rocking it. And being able to just give them that support is so great. And I love to be able to do that as well with our volunteers. All right. Anybody else? I will say for any volunteers who may be listening who struggle with the gift cards, although I think people have become way more comfortable with spending them, is that we also welcome you if you want to donate those to an organization. One of our volunteers said, "Oh, I don't even feel like I do enough to get recognized with this gift card. I don't do it for this kind of recognition." And I said, "You can give it away. Do it. Just, it's yours to do whatever you want with." And this light bulb went off, and he said, "Can I really?" I said, "Dude, it's yours. It's your thank you. Do whatever with it, what you would like." And he said, "My next door neighbor really struggles, and I'm going to give it to him, and suggest that he put that on his grocery bill." And he said, "Now that's what I do every time you guys send me one. I give it to my next door neighbor and thank him for being a great neighbor and tell him to, use it on whatever essentials that he needs." And I'm like, that is what it's about, right? So he gets to do something that makes him feel extra good by passing on that love. And we welcome you to do that as well, even with those AARP pens or notebooks, right? We do not get upset about regifting around here. If it makes you feel good, do it. All right. Well, we would normally call this, in the show that I work on, which I think Whit and I are going to talk about in a future edition, we'll call this Final Thoughts. So as we start to wrap up, I would love to know if you guys have any parting comments, but also if there's something you're looking forward to in 2025. And that can be a wild card, anything at all that you're looking forward to in 2025. Kurt, I'll go to you because you're right in the middle of my screen.
All right. Well, I'm starting some other initiatives in AARP, so that's where my primary focus is. Although, as one of the new kids on the Roost team, I'm looking forward to getting up to speed and taking on a number of programs here. So I'm just looking to expand my the impact of AARP in what I call my menu of volunteering activities. Those of us in the boomer generation, we tend not to just work with one group. We tend to do a lot of things. So these all allow me to touch different skills and interests every part of the week. So it's that's my goal. Is just add some more things, continue to have fun, and see if I can continue to do something of value while I still have the ability to do that.
I love it. I'll make a goal for you. We're going to get your voice on one of our recordings this year for some other
I'll
project.
tell you, I've already been a little overexposed. I'm in a video and a bunch of other things. So be careful what you ask for.
Hey, you said you're become Insta famous, right? With joining the podcast team. So here we all go. That's been my goal too. So I'm coming along on this ride with you guys. Okay. All right, Nancy, how about you?
Well, I'd like to put out a call to anybody out there who has good ideas about programs for the homeless and the hungry. I work with a group called Bread for the World, and there's a lot more hunger and homelessness among senior citizens than what most of us realize. And this is a real issue, and one that has really grabbed me. So if there are AARP organizations out there that work with the homeless and the hungry, or you've got great ideas of something going on in your community, please let me know, because we need to spread the word about what we can do.
Thank you, Nancy. If I had to give you an award, Nancy, it would be that you are great at coming up with ideas. I always see good ideas coming out. Yeah, go ahead, Louise.
I apologize. Our internet's been out, and apparently the guy just showed up, and I was in the room with the internet. So, going along with what Nancy just said, I went to this event last night, and it was put on by a place that does respite care for, caregivers and those with the diagnosis, and there were a lot of people that go to eventbrite.com and they see what's going on close to them that they can get to, where it's free and it's either education or food or whatever. And apparently I had never been to this event before, but I know a lot of the players, so they invited me. And so I was very struck with, all these people coming for this free food. But then I thought, these people come because it's good food, it's made for them, and it's prepared. And this is a gift to the community. And, it's really nice. And it's also a social event, and they had music and prizes and free little giveaways. And it struck me that when I interviewed for this AARP organization, the state that was doing this picnic, and it was great. But I thought this was a similar kind of thing. And before, people used to go to their churches and churches would help out. But many people have gotten away from that. They're too far away or whatever. And it's nice to have something local. And the nice thing, too, that I will tell you about ARP, having worked with Terry Elder, unfortunately, she retired, which is very sad to me. But anyway, she worked with like lifelong learning, which is how I met her. And I like how AARP inserts themselves to help the community and to work with other community partners. And I think that's something that I'm not, Bob Bush does a lot, so he can get ARP to do anything, but I don't. But I am involved in a lot of organizations that are doing a lot of good things in our community, and we really don't have any resources except volunteering our time and coming together. And so, but I do love, that's one of the reasons I love these interviews, to hear what people are doing and how they're helping. And it's through AARP and the resources, and they're coming together in the community in some way. So just my thought.
Yeah, thank you, Louise. Our founder, Ethel Percy Andrews, had some really good quotes, and one of those is, "Our community is the place where we can be most effective." And it's one of my favorites because it is true. And no matter what that community is, right? It doesn't have to be a geographic community. It could be any number of ways that we affiliate and create community. But it is so true. And Constance, I'm going to have to bring that tithing of your time around and make that a thing in my world, because that is such a great way to talk about volunteering. So anybody else have some final thoughts?
Sure.
Go for it, Whit.
My plan and goal is to uplift people and allow them to feel and be appreciated, and most of all, loved.
Thank you. That is so important. And I know that the work that we're doing here, getting to elevate these stories where sometimes people may feel like they're working really hard and they're not sure if anybody noticed it, it's really important to get those stories told and to be able to share them. That's one of the things I've loved when you guys come back to Lillian and Judy and ask, is it okay if we share this with the people, they want to share it in their community, or they want to share it with community partners, is like getting to hear the whole story, or the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, is so cool for folks to be able to get to really talk about their work and the contributions that they've made and that they've been able to make through collaboration. Is a really great way, I think, that people feel seen, and that is so great. So thank you so much for that. And then Constance, I see you come reaching for the mute button.
Yeah, you did. You did. I certainly ditto everything that has been said. And I would just ask us all to also remember that we are walking ambassadors for disrupting aging. I was talking to a good friend recently outside of AARP, who does other volunteer work and has a couple of other businesses. And she shared with me that she recognized that, as well as she is known, a lot of people were unaware of one of her primary businesses because she just hadn't been talking about it. And so it occurred to me that we as volunteers, because we are walking ambassadors as volunteers of disrupting aging, but also of helping other people maybe recognize how they could become AARP volunteers. That's part of our mission. So I would just remind us all, because, and I'm guilty of this, I don't share with enough people that I do volunteer with AARP. And I think that that's important to do. So.
Yep, that's how we reel them in. And then back to the events and activities. I always say, if we could just get them to an event, like a real AARP event, we will sink the hook. It happens every time. I've seen it. And hearing your stories here, you guys have confirmed that's true. Doretha, bring us home.
Besides that, the one thing that I try to evangelize with everyone are they members? Because there are a lot of people that are not members, and they don't really know what AARP offers. And it's not about, yes, they may not have the time to volunteer, but it's all these things that are out there. Because what we're finding, that a lot of seniors, when you stop working, they're alone. And I want people to know that there's a lot more out there. There's things online that you can do. There are things in person that you can do. Just join, just read. And all of a sudden they look up and it's like, okay, we do it. And then once they join, they'll call me and say, you know, you were right. There's all this stuff and it's exciting. So I like to get people to join first, learn about it, and then say, okay, now give me your time.
I love it. You kind of like be a creeper at some of these things, right? Go check it out, see what's going on first, and see what you like before jumping right in. Louise.
So the other grandparents to our grandsons were retiring a couple years ago. And of course, I always talk about AARP. And so actually, Alan is an accountant and he volunteered because of me to do, I mean, they live up in New Jersey, Connecticut, I guess. And so he's a volunteer now with AARP doing the taxes for them. So I thought that was pretty good. So, you know, I just talked about it because I love AARP. So, you know, so I'm always an ambassador along with you, Constance.
Yep, that's amazing. I love that. I love that referral too when folks go and jump in another state when they've heard so many good things about it. That's always amazing. All right. Any final thoughts before I wrap it up? Y'all have been so much fun. Yeah, go ahead, Doretha.
Yes,
Just
Tyra,
want to say, sorry, Whit, I didn't mean to step on you.
we
I just
appreciate
want to
you
say
and the opportunity.
thank. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Should we flip a coin? Whit, go ahead, Doretha.
Oh, no problem. I just wanted to say we appreciate you, Tara, and thank you for the opportunity to serve the AARP community in the
Thank you. Doretha?
Actually, I was going to say the same thing. I just want to say thank you, thank Lillian, thank Judy, thank the whole entire team because this has been a phenomenal journey. We've learned a lot. It's exciting, and your excitement is infectious. You're always so upbeat. Lillian is also so positive. Today I was cranky, and Lillian just ignored me. It's like, thank you, Lillian. I needed that. So, you know, it's always nice and you guys make us feel comfortable and you really do a lot to make us happy that we're part of the group. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And a big shout out to our ghost hosts, Lillian Lee and Judy Baroni, who are our co-leads and are so fantastic, always working diligently behind the scenes. We will have an interview one on two with them shortly, and we will have them in the conversation as well. But it is a mutual admiration society, friends. Will Stoner and I had this idea to get this podcast off the ground, and we both did a small part in getting it going. And then when we did the recruitment and brought on some team members early on, you guys just took it and ran with it. And I cannot believe how many podcasts we have up. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm pulling stuff off of that virtual shelf and sending it to people sometimes in advance of a conversation that I'll have with them so that I can say, hey, I think this is what you're talking about. You know, why don't you go listen to how this has happened in another state? There's a staff and a volunteer present to kind of tell you about their journey. And then let's chat about how that might work in your state. And that means that you're helping me do my job in ways that you don't even know about sometimes. So thank you for that. And you really do make me proud. And this is one of my favorite projects that we've been able to work on. And it's one of the reasons I come with great excitement is because I just know how much of an impact that it's going to make, not just now, but in the future. You guys talked about how, you know, something may be happening in one state today that's not relevant in another state for 5 years. And so for us to be able to pull something off and say, hey, not a whole lot has changed about what we're recommending. You know, how we get some of the work done may change a little bit, but the things that we're working on and some of those core issues and the volunteer engagement pieces are often very similar. And so you guys are helping create a lot of AARP history and to catalog that as well. And that means so much to those of us who are working with the people all the time who really want to hear from their peers about the journeys that they've been on as they've been doing the work. So Thank you all for your contributions, and thank you for the conversation today. If you're listening to us or you're watching us out there, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you get reminded about every new episode as it drops. If you are a volunteer, whether with AARP or with any other organization, we thank you for tithing your time and for all the many ways that you are keeping the gratitude flowing to each other, as well as with your staff partners in all of the great communities across the country. Thank you so much for listening and or watching the Roost News. I am Tara Shaver with the Office of Volunteer Engagement, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.